BBC Radio Cumbria
with Emma Borthwick.
20 to 6, you're listening to the News Hour on BBC Radio Cumbria. Earlier in the programme, we heard from Cumbria's suspended temporary Chief Constable. He says he will challenge any decision to ask him to retire or resign. Stuart Hyde has been suspended for almost a year. In that time, 2 investigations, one by the Independent Police Complaints Commission and one by the South Wales Chief Constable, both found no evidence of misconduct against him. But Richard Rhodes, Cumbria's Police and Crime Commissioner, says he is going to ask him to resign or retire. There have been allegations of misuse of a forced credit card, inappropriate expenses and questions raised as to how much time Stuart Hyde spent away from Cumbria whilst in post. Cumbria's suspended temporary Chief Constable Stuart Hyde told me he is confident there has been no wrongdoing on his part.
I don't believe I misused the forced credit card. It's been investigated, as I said, over 8 months in intimate detail. And whilst some conclusions have been made about my administration, for which I'm more than happy to learn from, there was no evidence whatsoever of any misconduct.
What about claims of expenses?
Again, all of those have been looked at, and there was no evidence of any misconduct.
You spent quite a lot of time abroad, again at the force's expense. How do you answer those sort of allegations?
Well, I have, as I said on Tuesday, I have a slightly different narrative to what has been proposed, and I will be making that narrative in the right way. I'm not prepared at this stage to go into individual comments and recommendations in public.
Did you spend time abroad at the force's expense when really you should have been at work in Cumbria?
There's a lot that I would have to say in order to answer that question properly, but I would come back to the fact that I have been investigated for 8 months by a team of detectives, and they have concluded that there is no misconduct on my behalf.
There is this issue that you spent 22% of your time as Chief Constable away from the force, and that was during a time of huge cuts and restructuring. Would you do it differently if you're in the post again?
I think that there's quite a lot of things that anybody on reflection could do differently, and there's lots of things that I have learnt from this whole process, and I think that's good for me.
What would you do differently?
I've got lots of things that I've learnt from this that I will be discussing with the people that will be responsible for me over the next part of my career.
Can you give us an example?
Again, it wouldn't be fair for me to comment on that.
The South Wales Police investigation found no evidence of misconduct on a case-by-case basis, as you say, as did the IPCC. But do you accept that there is an accumulative effect? And what your pattern of behaviour demonstrates is a man who makes bad judgment calls.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think, like anything, when you reflect on it, you can do it better. And I'm clearly not saying, and have never said, that I'm the most perfect person, but I do believe that I can return to work and can deliver for the public of Cumbria, and I'm more than willing to do that. Is there a questionable pattern of behaviour here? I don't think so. I think there's lots of things I can learn, and I have learnt from it, but I still think that I can deliver for the policing of Cumbria, and I'm more than prepared to do that.
But you're not willing to give us an example of what you could learn or what you have learned?
At the moment, no, I don't think that will be right.
You don't want to retire, you don't want to resign, you've made that clear. If you are forced out of post, will you be taking legal action?
Well, we're not at that stage at the moment. Clearly there's lots going on, and I haven't actually been asked to resign or retire. Although clearly the PCC has made it his intention to follow a process that could lead to that, but which I will contest.
You're being given the opportunity to put your side of the story to the Police and Crime Panel, the body that scrutinises the Police and Crime Commissioner. What are you going to say?
I've got quite a bit to say, and I will say it at the time, but it would be inappropriate to rehearse that now in public.
Do you think the Police and Crime Commissioner, Richard Rhodes, holds too much power?
Again, it would be really inappropriate for me to make a comment in relation to that.
You've told me what it's been like for the last 12 months. You haven't given us an answer as to whether or not you'll be returning to work on Monday as Deputy Chief Constable or in your position as temporary Chief Constable, can you clarify for us, have you been suspended from the post? Have you been suspended from the force? And what are your options going forward?
Currently, I'm suspended from the role of temporary Chief Constable, and I think that may change on the end of Friday. I'll wait to see what happens.
What are you waiting for?
Clarity.
From
a number of people, including clearly my legal advisors and from others. I hope that gets resolved before the weekend, and if I'm given the opportunity to work again for Cumbria Police, I will do so to the best of my abilities.
Cumbria's suspended temporary Chief Constable Stuart Hyde there. The Police and Crime Commissioner Richard Rhodes, the temporary Chief Constable Bernard Lawson, and the chairman of the Police and Crime Panel, the body that holds Richard Rhodes to account, Celia Tibble, have all refused our repeated requests for interviews about this situation.